Mystery Men plays like a superhero movie that was never supposed to hold together, like it was stitched out of scraps, second ideas, and pure stubbornness. It drops you into a city that worships Captain Amazing like he is not just a hero, but a living brand, while a villain hijacks the spotlight and turns chaos into spectacle. And somewhere underneath all that noise is a team of bargain bin heroes, trying to prove they matter in a world that barely notices them. You probably remember the costumes that feel like they were thrown together at the last second, the powers that are treated with complete seriousness even when they sound ridiculous, and the gadgets that look like they should fail immediately but somehow keep going. The movie swings wildly between total absurdity and something unexpectedly heartfelt, often without warning. That unstable tone is part of its identity. But underneath all that chaotic energy, the truth is, the film almost became something entirely different. One casting decision led to another, each one shifting the balance until the version that finally worked clicked into place. Even the ending people remember was not the one they started with. It had to be torn down and rebuilt. And when the movie finally arrived, it was already speaking a language that the superhero genre would only fully understand years later. Before Mystery Men ever reached the screen, it was not even its own major comic property. It started as a side concept tucked inside Bob Burden's Flaming Carrot comics. That origin matters because Flaming Carrot itself was never designed to be sleek, heroic, or traditional. It was strange from the beginning. Burden created the character in the early 1980s, and the tone was immediately clear. Flaming Carrot is literally a crime fighter with a giant carrot for a head. That alone tells you this was not a world built for polished, iconic heroes. It was a world built for absurdity, for offbeat humor, and for characters who feel like they wandered into the wrong genre and decided to stay anyway. When the Mystery Men first appeared in 1987 in Flaming Carrot Comics number 16, they did not show up as a grand new team meant to impress readers. They appeared in a flashback, already framed as a group of obscure, underpowered misfits. They felt like a joke about superhero teams from the moment they existed. That was the core idea. These were not legends. They were second-string oddballs, blue-collar weirdos, and people who barely qualified as heroes at all. That gap between what superheroes are supposed to be and what these characters actually are was built into the concept from the start. The movie did not invent that tension, it inherited it. Getting a concept like that into Hollywood does not happen by accident. Someone has to recognize that all the reasons it should fail are actually what make it interesting. That person was Mike Richardson. He was not just a random producer stepping into comic territory. He founded Dark Horse Comics, so he understood the material at its core. By the 1990s, he also had film credibility through projects like The Mask and Time Cop, which gave him the ability to move between comic creators and studios without losing either side. When he looked at Mystery Men, he immediately saw the hook. These characters were not famous, they were not powerful, they were not even impressive on paper. That was exactly why they worked. Instead of building a movie around heroes people already admired, the film would center on misfits who looked like they had no business being in a superhero story at all. For most studios, that idea sounds like a risk not worth taking. Richardson treated it as the reason to move forward. By the late 1990s, he brought the project to Universal and signed on as a producer. Timing helped him. Hollywood was beginning to take comic book movies seriously again, thanks to a few successes that showed they could be major business. Even so, Mystery Men remained a gamble. It was a superhero movie about nobodies, a parody without a safety net. Richardson pushed it forward anyway, without trying to soften what made it strange. Once the project started moving, the studio faced a familiar problem. How do you make something this odd feel safe enough to invest real money into? Their answer was to anchor it with a major comedic force. Danny DeVito became the center of that plan. The idea was not casual. He was nearly the entire movie. The studio wanted him to star, direct, and play the shoveler, which would have reshaped the film completely. They were reportedly willing to pay around $15 million to secure him. That tells you how they were thinking. If the concept itself felt too weird, then a strong, recognizable personality could make it feel more accessible. The film would stop being about a group of misfits and start being about a Danny DeVito performance, with everything else orbiting around him. It would give the movie a clear center and make it easier to market. But the deal fell apart over something unexpectedly specific, not casting, not budget, but the soundtrack. Control over the music became the breaking point, and neither side would compromise. Because of that, an entirely different version of Mystery Men disappeared before it could happen. After that, the project shifted toward Ben Stiller. The studio hoped he could sharpen the comedy, refine the script, and possibly direct. It showed they were still searching for a single strong identity to anchor the film. Stiller ultimately declined directing because the production felt too large and complicated, but he stayed involved. He contributed to the script and remained part of the cast. Even then, the movie still hadn't found its final form. It was still searching for something stable enough that a studio could fully trust it. That search took a surprising turn when Universal handed the film to Kinka Usher, a first-time feature director known for commercials. On paper, it looked like a gamble. In reality, it was a calculated one. Usher had a strong visual sense and a proven ability to create striking imagery quickly. He had already earned recognition from the Directors Guild of America. What he brought to the film was not just technical skill, but a new perspective. He didn't see the script as something finished. He saw areas that needed to be pushed further. His solution was to build a world strong enough to support the characters. The city itself became a key part of the film's identity, filled with exaggerated architecture, neon textures, and a retro-futuristic feel that made it look like a comic book assembled from mismatched pieces. It stopped resembling a typical late 1990s comedy and started feeling like its own contained universe. At the same time, Usher allowed the cast room to experiment. He encouraged improvisation and let different comedic styles coexist, rather than forcing them into one tone. That decision shaped the movie's personality. The performances don't feel unified in a traditional sense, but that imbalance becomes part of the charm. Each actor brings something slightly different, and the film finds energy in that collision. The casting process itself played a major role in stabilizing the project. When William H. Macy and Jeffrey Rush joined, the film gained credibility. Rush in particular was making his first appearance in a Hollywood film, which added an unexpected layer of seriousness to the project. Their involvement signaled that the movie was more than just a throwaway comedy. That shift influenced other actors. Janeane Garofalo had initially hesitated to join, unsure about the project's tone and direction. But as the cast strengthened, her perspective changed. The film began to feel like a risk worth taking. Her involvement helped bring in Ben Stiller more firmly, creating a chain reaction that solidified the ensemble. Stiller's decision to play Mr. Furious instead of a safer role like Blue Raja was another turning point. It changed the character fundamentally. Instead of being a straightforward, angry hero, Mr. Furious became someone whose power is unreliable and whose confidence outweighs his actual ability. That shift made the character funnier and more layered. It also reinforced the film's central idea that these heroes are not what they think they are. During production, the film remained fluid. The script continued to evolve, and much of the comedy was shaped on set. Different actors brought different rhythms, and scenes were often adjusted in real time. That creative flexibility gave the movie its loose, unpredictable feel. It also made production more difficult. Large sets, complex designs, and ongoing changes stretched the schedule. By the end, Usher had gone through an exhausting process and chose not to direct another feature film afterward. Even after filming wrapped, the movie was not finished. Test audiences responded poorly to the original ending. While the story technically resolved, it did not give the heroes a satisfying victory. The external solution made the film feel like the characters had not truly earned their success. In response, the filmmakers reworked the ending, adding new material that gave the team more active role. The bowler's character became more central, and the final resolution shifted to emphasize the team's contribution. This change made the conclusion feel more earned and aligned with the film's themes.
One of the most interesting aspects of Mystery Men is how it anticipated trends that would become more common later. It satirized the idea of superheroes as brands before that concept fully took hold in mainstream culture. Captain Amazing is not just a hero, but a product, constantly tied to sponsorships and image. At the time, this felt exaggerated. Today, it feels accurate. The film also explored dysfunctional teams and flawed heroes long before they became standard in the genre. What seemed unusual in 1999 now feels familiar. When the movie was released, the studio treated it as a major project. The budget reached around $68 million, and the release date was adjusted to avoid competition. Despite those efforts, the film underperformed, earning significantly less than expected. Critics were divided. Many recognized its style and creativity, but found the overall result uneven. Over time, however, the film found a new audience. As superhero movies became more polished and predictable, Mystery Men began to stand out. Its rough edges and
unusual tone started to feel refreshing rather than flawed. That shift is what allowed it to become a cult classic. What once seemed like weaknesses became its defining strengths. The awkward powers, the mismatched team, and the strange visual world all contributed to something that felt distinct. Mystery Men did not succeed as a traditional blockbuster, but it endured in a different way. It remained memorable because it never tried to fit perfectly into expectations. It stayed strange, uneven, and unapologetically itself. Over time, that became its greatest advantage.